Hello, my name is Doris and I am Little Bird Products. Welcome back if you've been here before, and welcome if you're new here. And you know the drill. If you haven't subscribed, please do so you get notified every time I post a new video. And it really does help the channel. What I want to do today is I want to talk a little bit about what I'm going to be focusing on for the week. And this is the middle of the week, what I've been able to accomplish. And if you stick around, I'm just doing a little intro and going to talk about what I'm working on this week. And then I have a tutorial in here. I've had someone ask for me to do a tutorial of the French fold shrug that I make. It's one of my favorite patterns. It's probably the easiest thing to make. And it's just a big rectangle with 3 cuts and a little bit of sewing. And if you haven't bought the pattern yet, I will put a link to the pattern. It's one from Diane Erickson, and it is a zero waste pattern, but it's actually probably one of the most practical zero waste patterns I've ever seen. And you can do a lot of different things with it. There's other videos, I think, and tutorials and stuff out there, but I'll show you my way, the way that, and I always take shortcuts and take the easy way to do everything. And I do like to make them out of twin size Kantha blankets because I make them reversible. And that's a relatively inexpensive thing to purchase. I do purchase them, well, they're never new. They're always, vintage and upcycled cotton from India. And I have a supplier that's on Amazon, and I will put their link. I'm not affiliated and I don't get any money on that, but I'll put a link to where I buy them. I buy them in a lot of 3 or a lot of 5, because I'm always making these French fold shrugs because people like them. Now, what I am focusing on this week, I have been buying some things on Whatnot, yes, and I'm still focused on Whatnot, so we're not gonna talk about Whatnot. It's just that it's fed my thrifting habit. There's some very nice sellers on there, including myself, who sell some thrifted things. And, when I can get nice sweatshirts and t-shirts for $1 or $2, or I have bought some new ones from one supplier, because I'm focusing on t-shirts now that it's so stinking hot here in Texas. I can hardly stand to do anything else, because they're lightweight and they're cute. And I'm calling my t-shirt shirts. There's an earlier video on that shows you how I make them. But basically, I have 11 of these t-shirt shirts and little sweatshirts. And this is one that's hanging in my mannequin waiting to be finished. And it's so cute. I just love the saying on it. It says Sunday mood. And I am doing it a little different. I'm making use of all the pieces. I'm using the sleeves on the front and the sides. And I noticed I had a little spot on this, so I want to clean that before I put it all together. And then what I'm doing, I'll get this camera angle here. I am using what I cut off of the shirt as a ruffle on the back. Use it for the sleeves on the side and a ruffle on the back, and then the t-shirt sleeves on the front. So that's been fun, but it does take me a little while to design them. And I have 11 from my the end of last week's batch of t-shirts that I purchased in a Whatnot show. And then I have another, probably a dozen, that are the new t-shirts. And some of those are so, dare I say, cute. They're not beautiful. They're cute. One's Snoopy, and I love Snoopy. And then I think I showed you last week, I'll put it in here, my Betty Boop one that's mine. Well, I actually have a couple more Betty Boops, and one that I need to upcycle into a t-shirt shirt. So those are fun to do. They don't take all that long, but it does take thought process. It does take thought process to put together the right shirt with the right t-shirt. And they are oversized. That way they're roomy and comfy. And I've started taking the sleeves and cutting them off so they're like not even a half sleeve. They're like a quarter sleeve. But it ends up being a nice short half sleeve because they have all drop shoulders because I'm using mostly men's shirts. So that's my having fun, my whatnot fun. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to segue into finishing my French fold shrug tutorial. And without further ado, I'm going to take you into my cutting room and show you how I cut it, show you how I stitch it together, and show you the finished product. So have a great day, and I'll see you at the end of the week, and we'll see how much I've been able to accomplish with those 11 t-shirt shirts that I have together. I had someone request that I show a tutorial of how I make my French fold shrug. And this is probably the easiest pattern that you will ever make. And I'm going to show you the way I make it and what I do and why I do it. And I have here laid out on my large cutting table in my garage sewing room, or big cutting room, and I have laid out a Kantha twin size bedspread. You see how this is? And what I do is I fold it in half the skinny way, and this is the fold, and that's the finished edge. And here's my pattern. And basically, the French fold shrug is just one big rectangle. And you lay it on the fold to cut. And this is the shoulder down the center, right? And this is the front of the shrug. This is the back of the shrug. And this right here in the center is the sleeves. And these pieces here, you can see I have a cut line, okay? This is the front, this is the back, and those are just kind of the wings that hang down on the pattern. I'll insert a picture of the finished shrug here, and you can see what they are. And this lends itself to do a lot of different things. Now, what I do with the Kantha shrug, because I like to maintain all of the fabric I can, and I like the shrug to be just a little bit longer in the back, a little bit longer in the front. So what I do basically is I'll measure out this twin size blanket, and I will basically just cut it in half, and then I will use all of that half for this French fold shrug, making it a little longer in the front, a little longer in the back. And of course you can see right here, this makes those wings and the sleeves just slightly shorter. But that's not a big deal because they come out looking beautiful and it fits me. But if you have a different size piece of material, like over here, I have a bedspread, and when I would make my French fold shrug out of that, then I would follow this more to the T. Well, that is depending on the length and the width of the fabric. Again, it's just one big rectangle. And only a couple of, it's like 1, 2, 3 cuts. This is the front. So what I do is I don't waste anything. I cut it from here. Remember, this is a fold. I cut it here. And I leave this attached because, as you'll see here in the insert that I'll put of the French fold shrug, I keep this intact. And I flip it over because mine are, when you use Kantha, it's reversible. This, I flip it over and let it hang down the back as kind of an eye-catching eye appeal. And it's also the place, I stitch it down, and it's also the place where I put my clothing label, my Little Bird Products handmade clothing label. So when you wear it on that side, that shows on the back. So people are a walking advertisement for my business when I wear my French fold shrug. Now I am going to put my camera up above the table so you can see me cutting, and then I'll do that cut and that cut for those wings, and I'll do this cut so you can see me cutting the shrug out and cutting it. Then I'll take you into my craft room and show you how I finish it. Now I do have a serger. You don't have to have a serger. You can use a zigzag stitch, or you can finish the edges with bias binding. I do put bias binding around the front and any place where there is a raw edge that's showing so that I can make it reversible. And the only thing you have to do, once this is cut out, you lay it out, you fold the sleeve in half with the right sides together, and you sew up the sleeve. You know, it's the underarm. So you only sew, get that out here, under the underarm seam. That's it. That's all the sewing. And the rest, it's beautiful. You just put your bias binding around the front to finish the front edges, right? And that's all there is to it. So I'm going to put my camera up and show you how I cut it. Hopefully you're seeing this okay. Pardon me if you're not. And I'm going to measure this. Woo! Well, that's what happens when you try and do things a little different. There we go. Okay, let's try this again. I want to make sure I have this right the way I want it, and I have the halfway mark. Okay, 39. Okay, the first cut I'll make is at the halfway point. That would be right there. Okay. If I were really doing this efficiently, I'd cut two at once, but I'm not going to. This is going to be for my second French fold shrug. This is my second piece of Kantha. So I'm going to put that over here, set it to the side. All right. Now, I always like the back a little longer than the front. So what I'm going to do is move my pattern a little bit. This will be the back. And with the back, you can see this is the finished edge. So I kind of like that. In the front, it's the cut edge of the Kantha, but that's okay because it'll be finished with bias binding. Now, the cuts that I've make, like I said, it's from one side. I'm going to put a pin here. That's the end of the sleeve, the edge. And I'll take and put another pin here. This is just the way that I cut it because it makes sense to me and it's what works for me. Okay, so that's the end of where I cut. Now, what I do is I fold this back. There is the edge. And then I make sure that the edge is there. Now you can mark it on here if you want, or do it however you want. But this is how I do it. And there's the end of the sleeve. There's the edge. And see, I can see it on the other side because that my marker goes through. And there's my marker. Make sure I got it there. There's my marker for my edge. This is my lazy cutting way. And if you're more precise than I am, I'm sure I'll do that fantastically. So I kind of put it there, and I know that, where's my little pin? My little pin is right there. Now I'm going to cut this with the scissors because it makes sense to me. It just makes more sense for me to cut it with my scissors because I can get a better line. Okay, this is cutting the sleeve. pin. Make sure I don't go past the pin mark. Yep, right there. And I'm probably the most imprecise person in the world when I'm cutting something. Up to there. And then here on this side, from here to right to there. There. Okay. There's one cut, two cut. Now that we have those cut, we'll go back here. Okay. And this, see how this is? I put a little pin here because I am not going to, I don't cut this because that's what I said. I fold that back, okay? And I like to do this way to start out. And I am going to cut this with my scissors again because for me it makes sense. And see right there where that pin is? See? I need to get rid of this pin here that's going to be in my way. See that pin right there? Right there's the dot. And what I'll do is with this, right like that, see? And I'll cut right along that line. Oh, I think I'll do this with my there we go. Right up the edge there. Now you could mark it with a fabric marker. That would probably be easier. But that would be way too easy, huh? Okay. So now, take my pins out. Okay. That, my friends, is how you cut a French fold shrug. Okay, here's the front opening, so you know that's the front. Here's the sides. Now what I'm going to be doing is I want this to be the right side, the outside. And the orange, that will be my reverse side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in the house and I'm going to finish these raw edges, right? And I'm going to finish these edges. And then the only sewing you have to do is you put these right sides together like this, the sleeves, like that. And when you take it in, when you take it to your sewing machine, after your edge, you can actually finish the edges after you do the sewing stitch if you want. But for me, I usually finish them before. You go from here and you sew all the way just to this corner where you're gonna turn it. And that's it. There, and then over here, you sew right sides together for the other sleeve. You sew up to this corner right there. That's it. And then what I do is, like I told you before, this is that piece that I left, right? And I like the way this looks. Now what you can do, what I do is, sometimes I like to take and turn it back like this and stitch it down right down the center of this side to have a contrast. Or what you can do is you can take it and do it this way, the other way. I might do it this way this time and have the dark on the bright because I kind of like how that looks. And what I do is I fold that down. That finishes the back neck edge really nice. And then I sew this all the way down, and I put my label. I put my label right here, and I'll show you on the finished one. So that's all the sewing there is to do to a French fold shrug. I'm going to take you into my sewing machine and take you along with me when I do my serging, show you what that looks like, show you what it looks like after I sew the sleeves, and then put it together. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the extra things that you can do with it. And if you look at, I will put a link to Diane Erickson's pattern for the French fold shrug in the comments or in the description, because she has lots of things, lots of suggestions for different ways you can do it. One of the things that I do commonly is I will fold one of those, what I call wings, around and up to the front to make it a big pocket. And I like the way that looks too. But for a fast, easy shrug that you put together, this is the best pattern you can use. It's really fun. You can make it look different. You can make it longer. You can make it shorter. But I like this length, this particular length of the shrug. It's not too short and it's not too long. Okay, and here's my French fold shrug, all pinned up and ready for me to finish sewing. And you can see the sleeve, that's the only sewing that needs to be done, is right there to close that sleeve. And this is going to be the side that has the, you'll see that seam, it'll be an exposed seam, but I'm going to do some extra stitching over it, make it look real pretty. And then this is the other side, see the black and the red side. And then what I'll be doing is around the neck, down the neck, and then down the front, I'll be using bias binding tape to cover that up. But what I'm also thinking about is, see, here's the wings. But see how I take, I'm thinking about taking this back wing, bringing it around to the front. And then what I do is I sew it here. Get it here. I sew it here in kind of an angled pocket. So you have a pocket where you can put your phone and that kind of stuff. And I do the same thing on this side. I pull that back around and then I tuck the other wing underneath, and that makes the lining of the pocket. So let's see if I can turn it around. So see, there's it. And then there's that piece that I stitched down along the back, and then I'll put my little bird label, garment label on the bottom there. So this is a walking advertisement. I really like these cheerful, cheery colors. And as soon as I get my bias binding, I will finish this up, but it hasn't come in yet. And I think I'm going to go ahead and post this video, and then I'll finish it up and show you in Sunday's video everything about how it came out. But I think you have enough information now to go and purchase your pattern and make your own French fold shrug. Be sure and leave any questions you have in the comments, and I'll try to get back to you, and then I can respond in Sunday's video with examples if there's anything that you had questions about making this pattern. Thanks for watching. Bye.